So good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's good. So we are in another self-care Saturday. Hope everybody's well. And for this week of self-care Saturday, we continue our month of October, battle your challenges on the ways that we cope. We started the month with a good topic, expect the unexpected, where we had like a very heart-to-heart session. And yeah, so we have our another interesting session this weekend, which is art of engagement. So the self-care Saturdays are weekly sessions that we under PRKPP and also at the FIT unit, to bring you awareness of mental health, physical health, and we have Prof. Mohammad to bring on the topic for this weekend. So, Prof, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Felicia. Once again, a very good evening. Assalamualaikum warahmatullah to all my friends, to all the listeners who are now currently with us live on the Facebook and also in this Zoom session. So thank you so much for taking your time to be with me, with my friend here from FIT Unit, and also we are from the RKPP with regard to educating people. So this month, as you know, started last week for the month of October. We're talking about how to be strong, how to be resilient, how to be courage to face the challenges that all of us are facing in our daily life and living. Obviously, as you know, we will not be actually living without any kind of challenges, any kind of obstacle. So when we did in the last week, we talked about expect the unexpected, where we must always, be prepared and be proactive and look into every aspect of what possibly you think it is happening. Be expected, but also remember at the corner, at every corner, there will be something unexpected that comes up. So now we are talking about how much now you can then do what we call the art of engagement. This is where, when, as you know, in our daily life, we are not on our own alone. We have to be engaging with people around us. And so this is where we have to know how to use, our skills, our soft skills, our affective nature in terms of engaging with people. So let me first and foremost share my slide with regard to this topic. So this is the slide that I'm going to show to you all. The art of engagement. You can see it. Okay, so the word is the art of engagement. What does it mean? It is an art to start with. So the definition, as you know, engagement is when you have to engage with someone else. Actually, you can also engage with yourself to start with. This is what we call internal talk with each other, with yourself, internal dialogue, the way you engage with your emotion, the way you engage with your thoughts. But here we are talking not only with yourself, but the art of engagement with the people around. So sometimes you actually engage with so many people. At the end of the day, it's all get connected. If you were to engage yourself with a particular person, maybe you have to pass through and go through to many other people that is in between. So this is what engagement is all about. Let me just define it again. So it is the art to the act of engagement, basically. While doing the engagement, then you can apply the skill to be engaging. That is where the art comes about. Some people do talk about the arts and the science of engagement. So engagement also possibly have the element of the science inside that. But here we are focusing on actually how you can be very skillful engaging with people around you. So it is a process, and the process involves three elements. One element is what does the engagement is all about, in what manner, in what way, what are the things that you're engaging about, and then with whom you engage, and then what was the purpose, and what will be the outcome. So these four elements is very important. Always bear in mind that at the end of the day, the engagement must bring a very positive outcome. Sometimes a lot of our engagement have a tendency to be repulsive, have a tendency to actually cause more difficulty, more damage, and things of that nature. So whatever it is, we must know the purpose of why we meet up with someone, what we talk about, what we are engaging about, and then that particular someone and with you, you must know what is the purpose that you are with that person and what will be the outcome that you want during the engagement session that you have. So obviously it requires a lot of skills, the skills of communication, the skills of actually having vision, knowing the outcome, knowing the process, knowing the mission that you are doing, and also the element of being committed during the session that you have, especially when you want to actually possibly disseminate ideas, possibly disseminate, behavior and skills. So you must be committed doing that. So this is where the component of the art of engagement that we are going to talk about. So I'm going to point out various traits that is very important in this element of an art to the act of engagement. So obviously, in anything that we have, we cannot actually in engagement itself also, and in anything that you do with someone, we cannot put away the element of your thoughts, your connection, your cognitive, or that your emotion, the way you put your feelings to others. So if your thoughts is with regard to your verbal linguistic element, with regard to logic thinking, that is where you're talking about, in this case, you're talking about the intellectual ability. Then when you're talking about emotional engagement, so basically it's about your affect, it's about how you feel. Here we focus more towards what we call the emotional intelligence. And subsequently also engagement can also occur possibly on its own, the behavior part of engagement, but usually it's very difficult to separate between the three elements: the cognition, the way you think about it, the way you put your feeling towards it, and the way you act upon whatever you have in your thoughts and whatever you have in your feelings. So basically these three elements, when you're talking about engagement, is very, how should I say, intertwined within you and the person. So always remember that you have your thoughts, you have your feeling, and you have your action and behavior. That will be, all these will be inclusive towards the element of your engaging situation. Here is where we say, when you engage, that means you have more than one person. You're engaging with people around you, as depicted by this slide, and is also indicating that actually the art of engagement, the main purpose is actually to bridge the gap between people, and from that between people, maybe you can then realize there's opportunities, possibilities. There are also possibly threats that you can have between the two or between the people around. So as you know, that's why engagement is very important, because then it can actually better understand something that you misunderstood, better perception for something that you misinterpret. So that is where the engagement is for that purpose, to clear your doubt, to clear your misunderstanding and things of that nature. And at the end of the day, to become what we call both parties actually able to be in a very cordial relationship and able to actually learn with each other for each other. So that is where the art of engagement is. So as you know, in any kind of engagement, the first issue, the first trait that must be seen is communication. Communication can be either verbal communication, or most of the time the communication is non-verbal, or what we call your behavior, the way you show your expression, the way you show your body movement. These are the non-verbal communication cues that can be there. And these are the communication which is good, is a foundation of any successful relationship, either be it personal or professional. So just in case that if you want to know, there are always these two situations that you must always consider. When you are with people, if it is something of your career nature, or is it something because of your work, or because you are in an organization, that is usually in a professional mode. But after you are out of that professional mode or that serious mode, then you can be on a personal nature. And that personal nature could be on the social mode or on a leisure mode. So communication is important here because a lot of people do not realize that sometimes they mix between the two. When it is serious mode, which is supposed to be professional mode, they mix it up with a leisure mode, the jocular mode, the person that who's not serious with regard to getting things done, because they socialize the professional situation. So always remember this phrase: don't socialize a professional situation and don't professionalize the social situation, because it cannot be together in that manner. Because if it is in a professional situation, it is in a serious situation. You are looking for an outcome to the career, maybe to the organization. So be professional during that time. It's not all the time, but during that particular time, you must be serious and be professional. Especially when we talk about professional, it is the profession that you are in. Then subsequently, there is always time for your personal time, for your social time. So that communication must also be clear and be very good when you are in your so-called personal social situation. So this is very important when we talk about good communication, verbal, non-verbal communication. You to be a successful in your relationship, obviously you must know where you are, what situation you are in, who you are, what have you got, what are the things that is possibly your strength and what are possibly your weakness. So basically, when we talk about communication, then there in the communication itself, there is an art. So obviously, you'll be surprised in the voice itself. When you communicate verbally, it is your voice. Your voice can be either, make people feel comfortable with it because of the voice tone, because of the voice modulation, because of the intonation, because of the, inflection, or because of the way you use your voice, which possibly will create, in the sense of, a better relationship. But unfortunately, if the voice itself appears to be rather negative in nature, then it could break that relationship. So basically, when you communicate with regard to the use of your voice, if you can use accordingly your voice with that, what we call the skill of using, of modulating your voice, and people are actually wanting to listen to you more, people give you the best attention possible, and people understand you, then actually this art of communication is indication of your limitation. There are a lot of situations when communication, the voice itself, the direction that was given is actually goes away from a leader way of talking and communicating. And this is what we worry when a lot of people who was given a position, who was given in any situation that they actually become the higher position that they have with their subordinate, with their peers, but they are more of a non-leader, but just a good manager. And a good manager who's used possibly the art of communication is rather on a very authoritarian manner. But always remember there's always this spectrum of Too much is always no good. So too authoritarian will actually breaks the relationship, and too pessimist or too permissive nature will also then have get into what we call a bad relationship, because people don't actually respect you. People don't see you, your ideas, what you say, how you engage with them as something serious. So it is very important for us to take note between that spectrum of at least one particular point, an authoritarian person as compared to a very permissive nature person. So you should actually bring yourself to the middle point. That's why it is very important when you engage, so for you to get a person to actually understand you and close the gap between the two of you. So obviously, the communication must be very clear, must be understandable. You listen first before you want others to listen to you. Seek to understand before you can be understood. So that is actually an element of what we call uh, public victory. The public victory is mentioned by Stephen Covey in the 7 effective habits. One of the public victory is basically Stephen Covey says, seek to understand before you can be understood. That means actually you listen to people first, you listen them well, you engage with them with the element of you want to understand them. Then they can reciprocate and give it back to you. Then they can also understand you. So using then the multiple intelligence of verbal linguistic ability, then you can make it very clear. People can understand what you're trying to pass on the message, because communication talks about a message that is given by the person who sent the message must be clear enough to the receiver to hear the message. So as long as it is all very clear, there will not be any form of misunderstanding. So as you know, when we are talking about the art of engagement, then we spin off to what we call the art of communication. And this is where we want to emphasize each and every one are basically a leader on its own self, a leader who should be able to portray themselves and bring themselves forward with high regard, with high respect, and people actually take them serious. So that is where then, if you know how to have this ability, and then if you can engage whatever that you have, your ideas, the way you do things, and possibly you could end up become a very good. So in that sense, always remember when we talk about communication, we are transmit information from one source to the another to convey a very specific message, as I mentioned earlier, so that the reason is we want to get a desired reaction and a desired result. So in our element of when we say metal to battle your challenges, to battle your challenges, there's a lot of time the challenges that we are facing is with regard to our relationship with people around us. So if people don't understand us, that will be a very serious challenges, serious hindrances and obstacle for us to move forward. So I believe if you can understand that importance, whereby you first, get people to understand you, but before that, people will want you to understand them first, why they do things. So be a good listener. Maybe that could be the one that subsequently get you to pass on to engage with someone or whatever your perspective is all about. So this is where I would say we have to apply again and again. I keep talking about multiple intelligence. I keep talking about intellectual intelligence with regard to the verbal linguistic intelligence, where you know how to use your language in a very well mannered way so that people understand you easily. And subsequently, with regard to the verbal language, then you talk logically. So even in the the intellectual intelligence, you are very using logic sense of what you say. You don't just say things based on your reaction, emotion, but you talk things based on what you know, what you understand, how the mind look at it, how much your mind has actually, in a way, critically assessed the situation or the things that you're feeling and talking about. So that is very important. And then with regard to this, one of the most important element is, as I said, the social engagement. Now we have people around us. Physically, we call it social engagement. This is where we meet up with people around us, maybe one, maybe two, maybe three, sometimes in an organization, maybe as a team. Then when we go out to the community, possibly we also have the tendency to meet up someone to actually involve in what we call a social engagement that we have to actually develop and able to get on with people. So that is where the social engagement that I'm talking about. People understand you, you understand people, the relationship become more cordial, you get close to each other, then actually together you can get experience and you can earn success with that kind of engagement. Remember, the idea is to pass message, the idea to make yourself better. I have quite a lot of time when actually staff in an organization was seeing basically, the managers, the supervisory level were not understanding their subordinate, were not understanding the peers, and they were actually just directing them to do according to how the manager perceived what direction they should go. But in this case, they did not realize possibly that element of management, so the engagement is faulty, and that caused actually disruption in the relationship. So a lot of people are not happy nowadays, especially in this so-called COVID-19 pandemic, where things are not going very well for everyone, including the managerial position. They also possibly are quite stressed out, so they push down the burden to their subordinates, to their peers, whom they are directed to control. And because of that, their social engagement might actually end up rather in a negative manner. So this is one that we are looking. But the other element that we are looking right now in the COVID-19 pandemic is where we talk about now we can be actually socializing. We see each other well, we see each other in the same position at the same time. But unfortunately, we were using the social engagement through media. And this is where the big problem now. People can be at the same table, the same room, but they were communicating through another medium. So they can use all this kind of medium through mails, to Facebook, to WhatsApp, and tweets and things like that. But they were not talking to each other as much. So the social media engagement is now an issue, which is a very serious problem. A lot of time people don't really understand when we go into the social media engagement. So previously we talked about social physical engagement, but now the physical, even though they are there, but the media takes over. This is why we call the social media engagement. So as you know, in the social media engagement, someone in that medium can be just an observer. They just see, they just join, they just watch the conversation. They did not actually at all, join into the discussion. So they find out, let me wait and see first. So these are the observers in the social media engagement. So these are not a proper engagement. A lot of time when people are just silent observer in a group, in the social media engagement. So that is a very faulty one. And subsequently, there are some people who also just follow what is going on in social media, but they were not actually responding to any of it. So they are just not only observer, but they are just a follower. They follow and they just possibly show indication that they are there, they are following it, they may like it, but they did not give any response. So that is another level possibly with what happened in engagement that become faulty, especially now when we talk about social media engagement. Then subsequently, some people may be engaging in the social media level. They may be engaging, so they interact whatever that is in the Whenever they read their content, whenever they view, they may post, some kind of a limited interaction there. So they do engage, but subsequently their engagement is still in a very limited manner. So that is where we say that this person are actually engaging, but the way they engage is actually did not train them to be a much better person, to vocalize their thoughts, their ideas, because they possibly just show that they like the views, they like what is posted, but they did not respond further. And then there's another level, possibly to some who become more and more interested. They are the endorser. They actively share the content to another person. They retweet, they share, via all these mediums. So they are just endorsing the idea, but not even putting their own idea. So this is another level that we see in social media engagement, where when you are just an observer, when you just a follower, which is a silent follower, you possibly just click your finger towards what you are there and your presence is there, but you just follow it very silently. You may engage, but very limitedly. You endorse by passing it over to a lot of people, but you did not really comment to yourself. So all this so-called possibility of engagement is very faulty. Then the level 5 should be the one that most of us should be involved. But always remember, if you are contributing, you must also give a positive contribution. Actively participate in the conversation, interact, and then put up your presence there, your posting there, make comment. So you are contributing, but always remember, before you want to contribute, what is going on with social media engagement here is that people have a tendency to rush into contributing to the issue without actually clarifying the rights and the wrong, the fake news and the truth, and things of that nature. So that could also bring a negative element in the so-called social engagement through the media, because people are just simply endorsing, passing it through, and possibly contributing, rather contributing in what we call an abrupt manner without giving a thought, without doing their own so-called research with regard things that is going on with the content in their so-called social media that was posted. So these are the level of what we call the social media engagement, which actually is a very faulty engagement as compared to if you can have what we call the face-to-face engagement, where people can question you and then you can clarify things, and obviously you get what we call the best satisfaction when you are there on a face-to-face manner. Subsequently, this is another expression that similarly with the previous slide, we are talking about when you are just at the level of observer, you give your attention, but you do not interact. And then when you are at the second level, you do show your appreciation, right? You update, you possibly put your liking, that is your appreciation. And then possibly you are the one at the third stage where you share the updates that was posted to other people or to your own network. And the fourth one is the one, as I said, you do express your opinion by giving comment. Or you can be a contributor. You do contribute, create, and publish the content. And then, most important, you also collaborate your brand. But most important, you must be able to do it the correct way. Everything that you say, everything that you do must be not causing negative impact, but actually building people to a better understanding. And then you are not what we call just the rumor mongers, the person who continues this engagement, which is very faulty nature. So you contribute, but positively. Sometimes maybe some people they are very good at using this, or they are very good technically. They call it technical savvy. They can use an animate conversation, other followers, and that is where people make their point clearer through animation, right? Or they can actually use what we call advocacy. They use X as an ambassador for themselves to be heard. So that is where sometimes this number 6 and number 7, as compared to the earlier slide, we're only talking about 5 level, and that's number 6 and the 7 is what we call the technical savvy, the electronic savvy person will be able to use animation and advocacy to engage. So these are the things that we are seeing now, which is a very important issue that is going on. Because unfortunately, when people talk through social media, when people engage through social media, there will be a group of people who did that kind of engagement in a very faulty manner, causing a lot of, unfortunately, fake and research matters, and the person is not actually looking for truth, but just wanting to pass on what others say, and at the end of the day, despite it is wrong, but it has become a sense of belief as though the wrong is right. So this is the issue with regard to the social media engagement. And the other thing about engagement is when I say there are cognitive engagement, there are emotional engagement, and there are behavioral engagement. So when we talk about engagement, always remember it also never put aside the way you feel about the person you're engaging with. So it is about the heart in the mind of the person. When you are engaging, you are designing how your heart will be, how your emotion and expression will be with a person. That is called emotional engagement. So you make emotional connection with people. And this is where emotional intelligence is very important. If you know your emotion, then you know other person's emotion, then you can actually match the two emotions in a very proper manner. But if you are not emotionally intelligent, you are not personally aware of yourself, so possibly you are also not socially aware of people of the community that you are in. Again and again, I emphasize that in each and every one of us, we must at least build up our IQ or II, intellectual intelligence, plus emotional intelligence to the utmost possible potential that we can have. Because we always not just an independent person alone, but we are always interdependent with other people around us. So there is 4 steps to emotional engagement. Step number 1 is that we trust the people around us. If we can trust, possibly people can reciprocate our trust. If we trust a person, the person trusts us back. If we respect the person will respect us back. And then we are compassionate, we are empathizing, we are sympathy, and then we show care and concern. So that is the way we engage. If we talk about ourselves alone, and this is where some people are using personality trait that is not good for themselves. Example, the narcissistic, example, the sociopathic, example, the histrionic, example, the borderline personality trait, example, the passive aggressive nature person. They may lack the sense of empathy, and because they lack the sense of empathy, the emotional engagement is faulty, and obviously they will not be able to be. And then the emotional engagement should be enriching to the person themselves and to the people that they are engaging with. And if it is enriching, then it is a win-win situation. And when we talk about the so-called public victory in so-called the Stephen Covey 7 effective behavior, this win-win situation is one of them. Not only you are the one who get the advantage, but both parties get the advantage. So you are enriching yourself and also enriching the person that you're engaging with. And subsequently, the 4th step is that it's an eminence. That means it becomes serious, it becomes clear, it becomes what we call even noted between the two of you in terms of your social engagement, emotional engagement with a particular person. So the other important thing is, as I said, the second part of it, talking about compassion, talking about empathy, talking about sympathy, So always remember that you engage, how you want to show your empathy is at first put aside your judgment. You just listen and don't bring your judgment into what you hear. Because listen without judgment, only then you can actually be compassionate. Only then you can be care and concern. Only then you can show your empathy. And while in emotional intelligence, you try to look for the feelings. To be empathetic, you have to understand the feeling. You have to appreciate the feeling of other person. So that if you can appreciate the feeling of other person, then you can put yourself to empathize with that person. And then basically the third step is actually you have to sit in with the feeling with them. That means you already gel your feeling to the other person feeling. It's so much so that the person feel comfortable with you. Subsequently, to show your empathy, you need to understand, you're able to summarize, and then you're able to validate everyone's emotion, whoever that comes in front of you. You validate the emotion, saying that yes, it is possible to experience this emotion. There's nothing wrong with the person who experience that emotion. You are not an angel. You are not a person who doesn't have fault. So emotion should be experienced, and you should be able to validate if you are an empathizing person. So here are the four roots of strategic management. So beside the emotion, beside the social media engagement, we're talking about strategic engagement. So this is another point that we all need to know. If you want to engage a person, you must be able to engage so that the outcome will be good, and that is called strategic engagement. People want to actually be part of something bigger than who they are. So bring them in to be part of what you are, who you are, what organization you are, and that you are in. So obviously make them part of something bigger. That's why that will be what we call strategic engagement. You never push people aside. You never what we call just belittling people and just push them away. Make them part of so that they feel good about themselves. Subsequently, make them feel the sense of belonging. If they can have a sense of belonging, then your engagement will be better because they don't feel left out. They don't feel as though that they can't be with your kind of a group or a community. And subsequently also make that engagement a meaningful journey in the engagement. So obviously they understand you, understand them, and that brings meaning to their purpose, that brings meaning to what and who they are, and so that when you can do that, the engagement will be successful. Know that their contribution can also make a significant impact or difference to other people. So appreciate them. Appreciate strategic engagement. You must appreciate the person that you are engaging because each and every one of us have a part to contribute, and that part is a significant part. Never ever thinking that we significantly influence or give an impact, but each and every one of us, how small it can be, they have a very significant impact on the other. So always remember, most important is, I would say, if you want to engage with people, create the feel of a sense of belonging between you and the person. So this is where I would say that if you want to fight against a battle with people around you, with the challenges that you're facing, so be with them, don't push them away because on your own you need to be interdependent with them. And unless you can be interdependent with them with this sense of proper engagement, then only you can ensure the success of your fighting, your resilience, your ability to stand courage and the ability to be brave enough to meet up with challenges because you know you are not alone. So with that, I will stop my sharing and possibly we can go on with this discussion. So give it back to Felicia to continue this session. Thank you so much for this.
Right. you so much, Prof. We also want to welcome some new participants that has joined us, Fawaz and Sharifa. So yeah, you feel free to participate in our discussion. And also we have our audience on Facebook as well. So yeah. Right, thank you so much for the session, Prof. I really do enjoy the part about nowadays we are definitely engaging more using the social media platform and the 7 stages that you brought us through. And yeah, definitely the steps of how do we practice emotional engagement and one of the most important elements is empathy, the steps to practice empathy. Um, and yeah, so what would be, in this time and age, maybe I start out with the question, maybe in this time and age where there seem to be an overload of information and people trying to engage with us, whether it's an ad, right? Whether it's one-on-one, whether it's a group social environment. So now because we are definitely, and especially it can be overwhelming for some people. How do we know where do we get the right engagement, so to speak? Like I'm sure, like for the lack of better words, like we have a lot of noises, right? So
Yeah.
how do we be discerning enough to keep clarity on choosing the right platform or choosing the right people to engage with? For example, needing like maybe some help on enlightenment on certain topics. For example, we talk about mental health, right? So let's say a person feeling distress, and so many different communication coming through, and who do you engage with? How do you know you pick the right choice, right? Yeah.
Okay, number one is that first and foremost, if you are very clear about whatever that is the content of that invite you to engage, if you are very clear what it is, I think that is where familiarity, experience, your ability will come in. Then you know how to engage accordingly, because you know what is right, what is wrong, what actually transpired even prior to context that they are in and things like that. Then if you know all those kind of things, I would say you never turn away engaging with people, because you may be, as I said, an agent of change to make people understand what is proper, what is not proper. Example, like when if you are, like for me, if I'm at least knowledgeable in my medical field, in my mental health field, and if people who request engaging with me in a way that they have a very wrong perception, wrong understanding with regard to my field, my expert field, possibly I would then engage with them and try to clarify for that. Unfortunately, what happened in social media, a lot of us have a lot of ideas, have opinion, but we ourselves is not sure. So when we talk about certain terminology, when we explain about certain thing, if we are not sure, then it could actually end up giving a very wrong information, engaging in a very wrong way, and possibly even inviting a lot of, this is where sometimes people say in the social media, what happened to social media is people attacking each other or people becoming critical to each other. And some people may not be able to withstand that kind of insult or assault cognitively or emotionally, because people have their own views and things like that. So just beware that you know who you are to engage in whatever the situation is. Sometimes even then, even if I'm, maybe if I can say I'm more knowledgeable in my mental health, but I realize if I were to engage with someone who appear to be having a very strong stand, fixated mind with regard to the understanding of the mental health, if I were to deliver what I thought was correct to them, and they will never want to even accept it, if I could sense that element, then I would not engage with them. If I could sense that element, then I would not engage with them. If I could sense that element, then I would not engage with them. If I could sense that element, then I would not engage with them. If I could sense that element, then I would not engage with them. If I could sense that element, then I would not engage with them. If I could sense that element, then I would not engage with them. If I could sense that element, then I would not engage with them. If I could sense that element, then I would not engage with them. If I could sense that element, then I would not engage with them. If I could sense that element, then I would not engage with them. If I could sense that element, then I would not engage with them. If I could sense that element, then I would not engage with them. If I could sense that element, then I would not engage with them. If I could sense that element, then I would not engage with them. If I could sense that element, then I would not engage with them. If I could sense that element, then I would not engage with them. If I could sense that element, then I I should not engage in further because I know that could end up with a lot of arguments, a lot of feeling negative towards each other, because by then it is no more a person who's thoughtful, but it's more of a person who's emotional, oversensitive, exaggeration. So this is where I say that we have to be very, very smart in the way we engage anyone, everyone. So to be that very smart, sometimes it is not necessary to be knowledgeable, but just need to understand that where this engagement is leading to. Is this engagement going for a positive way, or is it this engagement going to negative way? Do we engage with the person who are actually seeking for a correct understanding of things, or a person who just want to put their idea and couldn't be bothered about other people's understanding? So then if you realize that, but this is where we fall, whether you like it or not, all of us have to equip ourselves with actually the skills in the emotional intelligence, how to relate to people, how to understand people's emotion, how to actually pick up people's so-called, misunderstood about certain things. But then again, as I said, if somebody is already fixated in the mind, after one or two so-called time that you try to correct things or trying to give your perspective, but it seems to be there is resistance. So I think that engagement will not bring anything good. Then you have to decide politely decline or not going further, because there's no point. And the worst thing is that that person also will have some followers who trying to also convince that person that he's right, and then you also possibly have some followers who trying to convince you and the other person who is right and who is wrong, and at the end of the day it become two different parties who actually go against each other in the same medium possibly. And this is what happened we see in social media. Subsequently, from one person to the other, become one group to the other. At the end of the day, it can become, as I said, from it to ego self to ego ideal. A lot of people, at the end of the day, regress from the ego self, which is protecting ego, subsequently become even animal instinct, which is beyond protecting the ego, just trying to satisfy and gratify themselves, and they can bash you up, they can say something that is not nice, and this is where we worry it can end up. So you must be very clever to gauge the situation. Yeah. So it is good as an engagement. It is good. The only thing is that we should know how to engage.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it well with the statement where the art of communication is also the basically just leadership, and we have to know well how do we communicate, how do we engage, and yeah, and actually what you've been talking is a lot of about soft skills, and it's really important to know the intentions when you appear or when you go on, like in terms of like the social media. It's to know, like, some people have their boundaries, they may not be ready to listen or accept, or when I'm consuming, like, on the other perspective as well, if I'm consuming information from the other party, uh, it doesn't mean that it's not valuable, but sometimes it's not the time and the space for me to look into that. So we have to kind of know and respect where people are. So yeah, so maybe that will be, the steps to practice, which is the empathy that you mentioned, the 4 steps, like the listening without the judgment, looking for feelings. And I think you mentioned that in your answer just now. Sit in the feeling with them and summarize and validate. That's really important. How then do you help to follow through? Because sometimes in certain things, mental health can, like we mentioned in the last week's session, that it is not physical. You don't really feel it physically, like there's no blood coming out, right? So it's not like an immediate thing that you want to go and fix it, put a band-aid over it. But you do know that it sometimes it is affecting your physical health,
Yeah.
and as a bystander or a person maybe that you care or whatever, how do you follow through from the conversation that you have? Like maybe they obviously, if an individual is at that point, it's a bit stuck, right? So definitely they need a little bit more encouragement and time, but sometimes time is not there. You know that it's quite urgent, you know, to look into it, because it may actually already overflowed, or it already affected the physical part. So how will you step into follow through as a friend or as a professional?
Okay, this is where I keep emphasizing, you need to become at least a facilitator. If you can do, you might as well become a facilitator, psychological facilitator. What does it mean? It means that sometimes when you understand that people are going through whatever their own emotional turmoil, distress, and because of possibly cognitively they have a very wrong attitude and wrong understanding of things, their belief actually influence them as much. The cultural, the environment has influenced them in such a way that they maintain and perceive accordingly, which is very wrong. So the best is actually to get this person to start with, accept that how he feels as something that actually each and every one of us will have that tendency to have that emotion, because emotion, all of us have these six emotions: the happy, the sad, the anger, the frustration. All those basic emotions are with us, and we tend to able to react to any situation that create these six basic emotions. So if we were to know about this, then first and foremost we need to understand. That's why I said, at least be a facilitator, be a good listener. When you are a good listener, you can ask a person to tell you more about how this thing come about to his point of view kind of thing. So basically, when you open up, you listen, you allow the person to ventilate, to say it out clearly, and then you keep clarifying, you keep asking for more, you keep trying to understand first. You understand well. If you can understand well, only then you can respond to it. If ever you don't know how to respond to it, but at least you're present, as I said, the ear to listen or the shoulder to cry on, that is already good as a facilitator, because you don't need to have an answer to the problem as yet. Maybe that person just need to be there to endorse his feeling, his emotion. So you are there just to endorse, and then you support psychologically, you support in terms of that empathy, you support in terms of your so-called compassion. Be kind to that person, not making any kind of a judgment. So a lot of time, I think we are rather very abrupt in the way we respond. Sometimes, what worries me most of the time is that even myself, which understand the concept of transference, counter transference, sometimes I put my emotion based on my experience with people of that nature, and the way I see it. Maybe I get angry with that person, or maybe I see that person as someone that is weak. Then I put my idea to that person, which is actually making judgment. And this is where we call, I put my counter transference in psychological term, in any therapeutic term. It's not good because I'm using my label to label him, to actually cage him. So I think that person also possibly will see you and use what we call transference towards you, whether the positive transference or the negative transference. So you must be aware of that. As I said again and again, the issue here is that all of us, we need to be together, put our head together, learn many things together, so that we are better equipped to handle all these situations that people are experiencing. Because always remember, our purpose is basically, if we can, we want to make a change in a particular people, in a particular situation, in a particular community. So if we want to make a change, it should be a better one, in the sense of having knowledge, having skill, and knowing how to bring our affect or our emotion to the surrounding that we have. So I think that is the reason why we keep pushing all these. Always remember, you won't be able to know, even though, as I said, I have been there for quite a number of years talking about human psychology. I'm still actually making a lot of mistakes when I interact with people. because it's very difficult actually to stop my desire to show that I know, to show that I'm right, to be imposing. It is very difficult to stop that.
Yeah. People don't sometimes care what we know, right? They care how, like, if we care for them. So I think that's like what you say, you reminded us of the purpose. So yeah, in the coming weeks, you mentioned in the coming week, we have a session called character development. So maybe you can touch on how this following topic will relate to our journey on our purpose to battle the challenges.
Okay, just how should I say, preempt to what is going on next week. Basically, character development, it started with, okay, all of us have traits, good traits and bad traits. And what has happened is that we are using a particular trait in a very, how should I say, uh, rather ritual manner, rather that it is part and parcel of us, we are using that trait. So now when we talk about character development, we can actually, even though our personality has properly trained and properly actually settled, it is very actually difficult to change who we are, as we know that once you are above 20, your personality is well ingrained in that sense. I mean, it is very stable, good or bad. But we can always redefine the way we approach to certain traits that we commonly use. And that is where we develop a character that could possibly, always remember this, what happened to you and to me is that if any result turned out to be maladaptive, not aligned, not adapt to the situation, people don't feel good about it, you don't feel good yourself, then something need to be corrected. If whatever that you do, whether you think, whether you feel, whether you act, at the end of the day, the outcome is always adaptive. That means you feel good about it, people around you feel good about it, then continue doing that, and if possible, enhance it further. That means improving and enhance it, and then you become much, much more better. So I think that is where when we talk about character development, it is actually not too late to make a difference. As I said, I can give you an example. I'm a procrastinator. But when am I will be a procrastinator? And when do you think I can push aside my procrastination to become a better person, to really act on things that I need to do? That's why situation sometimes plays a very important part. If I were to be not in an urgent situation, even though it is important, I may apply my procrastination because thinking that, oh, I still got time to do it in much later days. But if I'm in the urgent situation, then I push aside my procrastination to really complete it because it has now become not only important but become urgent. So when it is become urgent, we need to see the result then. So now what I'm trying to do is that whatever the important things need to be given the proper place. Important things need to do importantly, and possibly don't wait until it becomes too late to make a change. So we don't want you to really reach a wall, hit the wall, only then you say, I want to turn back. So that is why this situation of how to be strong, metal to battle, is when if you are weak, if you don't change your character, you can't fight the battle. You can't win and you can't work around the obstacle and the challenges. You cannot even face off with those challenges. So that's why it's an important part that we need to talk about.
Yeah, you brought up a good, interesting point. How do we stop procrastinating? That will be a good one in the character development.
It is a very important issue.
Yeah, definitely, because a lot of things that we are important or urgent, but we put it aside because of certain things that, like what you say, we have all traits that sometimes may not support towards a positive change or actions in our daily lives. So I think that's really good. And yeah, definitely this week we have learned about social engagement, the art of engagement. And maybe we want to end tonight with a little bit on what should we practice maybe a little bit practice of like this week. How can we be mindful of how we practice the art of engagement?
Okay, to practice the art of engagement, always realize how and what did you really use when you are engaging with people. If you take stock and knowing what you have been doing and how you have been using in terms of your communication with people, in the sense of, as I said just now, when you are socializing, and the social engagement is there. When you are actually with people, how you place your emotions there. So those kind of a thing need to be actually audited every day, possibly immediately, even after the session that you have with anyone. Let's say you are engaging with someone and then you realize, oh my God, what have I done? I was rather angry rather than able to be patient. So what is going on? Why that make me angry? Because if you don't do what we call audit, self-audit, if you don't do self-reflection, you will never be able to see things accordingly. So if possible, take a bite-sized changes that you want to do. Don't wait until then 24 hours only, then you want to recapitulate, recollect what was right, what was wrong. Immediately, if you're a very mindful person, you are already mindful about what is right and what is wrong at that particular moment that you experience. So that's why all these are all interconnected. We are talking about being mindful means you never wasted a moment that you have. It is always a correct movement, which at the end of the day will lead to a successful moment, a successful endeavor, and it makes you happy, and it makes you peaceful, and it makes you in harmony within and without with other people. So I think remember that be mindful, do self-audit, do self-reflection immediately if you can be aware of it so that with mindfulness you can make a difference.
All right, I think so. With that, we've come to the end of our session for today. So let's practice the art of engagement by being staying present and mindful. And it's important to reflect immediately, right? Sometimes when it goes too long, then we forget what we have actually done or what we can do better in the process. So I think that will be a good practice for the coming week as we take on the topic of character development for the coming Self-Care Saturday. So is there anything we want to add on?
Maybe we can ask Sharifa, Aida, or Fawaz who's with us today. I guess these names are also not familiar to me. Any words, Sharifa or Fawaz? Just show me, show us who you are so that at least we know, we can be in our circle from now on.
Yeah,
thank you so much for being with us.
Yes, definitely you can tune in. You can leave us a message. You can contact us on the WhatsApp group that we have for future topics, and all these are also recorded as part of our education. And yeah, it may benefit perhaps a friend or family member that you can send these previous links of sessions, right? So yeah, so I think with that, we end to next session and hope everybody is well. So stay safe. Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. All right, thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Okay, see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paula.